Hey, hello, and welcome to the live stream dedicated to Jira and how to use it. And right from the start, I want to make sure that you understand that this live stream will be beneficial for all levels of project managers. If you are a new project manager or you are an experienced, seasoned IT project manager, it doesn't matter. Because, yes, from one side, I'll be talking about some basic stuff of how to use Jira. I'll show you around. I'll explain what's the idea behind the main elements in Jira. But after that, I'll be also talking about one critical skill that I believe every project manager needs to have. It's tailoring. And I will show you and explain few project management concepts that you must know, and you must know how to implement them inside any tool, whether it's Jira, whether it's Azure DevOps, or any other tool that you can possibly use. And that boils down to, again, the main skill that I believe everyone should know how to use and develop. It's tailoring. And if you are interested to become a great project manager, I strongly recommend that you get my professional development plan, because it teaches you a few things about what is tailoring and a lot of things about what you need to tailor to become a great project manager. So while I'll do some housekeeping, you can scan this barcode or go to the link, or I can paste it in the chat for you. So if you're new here, I'll be glad and honored if you take my development plan to become a great PM. So if you are again a new person here, a new project manager on this channel, let me introduce myself. My name is Dmitry Zhebetsky. I'm a project manager and mentor for more than 12 years already. I'm the author of the Practical Project Management book and the author and creator of the Career Accelerator mentorship program. And most probably you're watching this on my YouTube channel, where we just hit the 50,000 subscribers, project managers, or I suppose, or aspiring project managers. So that's all. I think we should dive in straight away. So let me quickly switch my view to another screen, and we'll jump right into Jira. Okay, we need this one. All right, Dennis, I have a copy. Great book. Thank you so much, Dennis, and thanks for joining us. All right, so this is Jira. Let me make it bigger for you. I hope you can see it. Most of the time, when you just log in into Jira, you will land on the board, on Scrum board or Kanban board, whatever you call it. And there will be some tickets here. And we'll ignore all the bells and whistles of Jira that you see on the screen right now, all these possible menu options, all these buttons. This doesn't matter. In fact, uh, one thing you need to understand right off the bat is about issues and what it is. So an issue in Jira is like a ticket or a piece of work, a task, whatever you call it. It's a card that contains all the information about a piece of requirements or a piece of work. And Jira is tightly connected with Agile project management frameworks like Scrum and Kanban. These are two main frameworks that you can use inside Jira. That's why you will often see here that you will work with epics and user stories, and below them you'll have tasks. But again, that doesn't matter. Once you understand the underlying principle of Jira, everything else will make sense so much more. So think about Jira as a set of cards with additional information. So every ticket has a title, and this is something that you use to explain what needs to be done in this task. And you can follow either best practices of writing user stories, things like, as a user group, I want to do something to achieve some benefit. And then you can have description as a text field. Again, you can type text here, you can format it, you can add tables, everything or anything that will help you to explain the work required in this task. Then you have acceptance criteria. This is something I added here. You normally don't see it in default Jira, but again, we'll talk about it. Another field, environment. Again, text field that you can use here for different purposes. And then you have this sidebar with additional information, which is called details. The first detail, one of the most important ones, is status. This is the status of your ticket or issue. Then you have different fields here that add more context and details to this ticket. So who requested it? For example, I requested this ticket, so I can put myself here. What department I'm in? Also, I can make it myself, like marketing department, for example. Who reported this ticket? It's basically who created it. What's the impact of this ticket if it's a defect? I think, yeah, it's a story, but we can have this for different types of tickets. And I'll explain that again later, because it's important to understand that you have all these fields and you can use them by default, the default Jira fields, or you can create your own fields and add them here. This example is a more customized thing that I used for some demos, but basically I've created a lot of or added some default fields here to give enough context and information about Jira ticket. I don't want you to stress about all of them and trying to understand what's the idea behind them, how we use them, or whatever, like what's the essence behind all of this. For now, I want you to understand that, as you can see, any ticket is just a container for additional information, and you have access to all of that. And there are some simple things like text fields or drop downs or search fields where you can search for a person or search or department, or you can select it from the drop down. Again, doesn't matter. You can customize this, but if you are new to Jira, I strongly recommend that you start using it just like as simple as possible. Then you can make things complicated and so on. Now, you can also have this chat section here. This will be a the messaging between you and your team members, and it will be stored in chronological order. There is a history of all the changes. There is a work log where you track hours and so on. But again, here's something like you need to understand. And again, Jira will become very easy for you after that, because you need to understand that under the hood, behind the screen, behind this whole UI user interface, there is a database, and you can think about it as a spreadsheet. Jira is nothing more than a spreadsheet on the backend, on the inside. And you can see that Jira actually added this view recently and show you all the tickets or issues in a format of a list, or basically a spreadsheet where you can edit all this, you can sort this like you would do in a spreadsheet in Google Sheets or Excel, the same stuff. So now, this from one side is looks very simplistic, that it's just a database and nothing more than that. But at the same time, it gives you a lot of flexibility, because if you look around, all of these buttons that you see here, all of it, like everything that you see on the this sidebar on the left hand side, is just a different way to represent the same information in the database, in your spreadsheet. So this is like a Gantt chart view where you can put your tickets on a calendar if you want to. This is your backlog, but basically that's another representation of your tickets. you just group them by sprints and by backlog based on some criteria. In most cases, this is the status of a ticket. Again, active sprint, that's your board, another representation of the same things, like, again, based on just statuses or the columns and assign statuses to these columns. And the rest is just the same ticket under the hood. All right. A new way to represent is a calendar. I haven't seen it myself, like it's something new that Atlassian just added. And by the way, guys, if you watch this even like few weeks from now, there might be new things. They might change something in Jira, so don't be afraid. They are constantly improving Jira, adding new features, so it might look different. But again, if you understand the underlying principle of Jira, everything will be easy to explore and use it even like in different versions. And another, by the way, important note, everything that I'm going to explain here, you can go and test yourself. Jira is free for teams up to 10 people, and you can customize and play around Jira for free as much as you want. You can create projects, you can create tickets, you can create, like even play with the sprint. You can use it for your own productivity, but I think it's not the best productivity tool. All for free. So if you have zero knowledge about Jira, you can go and test it out yourself. Now, I think some additional like overview is required for the backlog. And as you can see, it's just, again, a list of sprints. If we just put them or close them, it will be a list of sprints and backlog. And the main idea is that here you can actually rapidly create your tasks or user stories or whatever you use. And you can do it either right in backlog. So I can type right here, this is my new user story. And it will be added. You don't need to add any or fill out any other fields. You can just capture the title. If you use proper format for the title, it can be self-explanatory, but later you can go and fill out all the details. And you can open it just by clicking on it and continue working by filling out all the details, description, acceptance criteria, assigning it to people, estimating it. Everything is possible here. And from the other hand, on the other hand, if you work with a team, everyone can work with the same ticket at the same time. And you will be like collaborating live on any item here, and everyone potentially see it instantly on their computers. All right, so as a project manager, what you need to know about working with backlog? Well, first of all, you can create multiple sprints here, so you can do the release planning right away. You can use backlog to store all possible information about your future work, about your requirements. And basically, this leads me to the first critical idea that we need to discuss. And I'll switch to my slides for a second and show you one critical idea. So far we just, again, we talked about Jira in a very simplistic way. We learned about tickets, and we understand that it's just a database of tickets. It's a spreadsheet where you have the identifier of a ticket and all the related information to that ticket. That's all. After that, it's all about how you organize and represent and show these tickets to people. Okay. So what we are looking at is a typical workflow of scope management, starting from the identifying scope, not scope, but project goals, and going into requirements and scope of work, and then you create deliverables, work breakdown structure. All these tools are great. And most project managers don't understand, okay, why I'm showing this to you. This is like from plan-driven project management. It's not applicable to Agile, Scrum, or Jira in general. And this is like one of the biggest misconceptions. Thinking that if a tool is used like using agile principles like Scrum and Kanban, then no other project management best practices can be applied there. That's wrong. You can and should implement a lot of additional project management concepts inside Jira. And if you don't, then your work and life will be much harder. So one of the problems that people often see, if we look at from another perspective, in theory of project management, we talk about deliverables, and we break them down into work packages, and then we break down work packages into tasks. And we usually have assigned requirements to those deliverables that we must implement and create a piece of product or project that we can hand off to customers. And you need to have all those requirements implemented. But when we talk about agile project management and we use Scrum or Kanban, then it's like a bit different. It's reversed. So we agree that, okay, we don't schedule our deliverables or tasks on a timeline. We say, okay, our schedule is just 2 weeks or 4 weeks per sprint. And there is only one deliverable. Actually, one deliverable is increment. This is the additional generated value or new features that you introduce in your product or service at the end of the sprint. And that's why, like, your requirements, they are not sitting outside. You're actually working with requirements, and you are breaking down them into tasks, which is counterintuitive because you want to break down the scope of work, the deliverables into tasks to understand what it takes to create a product. But because we're using a simplified approach as Scrum framework, we eliminate all that and do a simplification that a user story or an epic is a piece of requirement, and it's okay to estimate it using tasks and work from those tasks without any additional complications. All right. Now, on the other hand, if you are going for plan-driven approach, you will have like a set of deliverables that you need to create, and therefore you will get your project finished after you finish implementing all the deliverables. In Scrum, it's the same idea. You need to finish certain amount of sprints to deliver certain increment to finish a project successfully. And this idea is the same across everything. Okay. And our goal, if you are like looking at these two approaches, our goal is to make one important exercise as a routine, as our habit. We want to break down any project into smaller, more manageable pieces. And this is the mantra you want to repeat to yourself all the time. And any tool that you use should allow you to work on smaller piece of your project, which will then comprise to the whole project deliverable, final deliverable that you need to produce. Okay, when you look at this, like you say, all right, so what do I need to take from here into agile project management, into these hybrid project management approaches with Scrum, Kanban, and Jira? And the idea is simple. You still want to make your projects manageable by breaking them down into smaller pieces. And if you think about agile development, about like working with Scrum framework, you're developing a product continuously. You do it like sprint after sprint after sprint, and ideally you release or deliver your increment to the market all the time. But if you don't, that's where like hybrid project management comes from, and you can benefit from many additional best practices that will make your work much more efficient. So again, if you work with Scrum, but you do not deliver the increment to the market after each sprint, you can improve your productivity and productivity of your team by using plan-driven project management approaches. And it's not coincidence that actually Jira has a lot of these things implemented in their default setup. So you don't need any plugins to convert your pure Agile, uh, pure Scrum project into a hybrid project management approach, right? So let's get back to the back to Jira, and I'll show you what I mean by breaking it down. So, okay, now we're looking into Jira once again. And when I was talking about this, you need to break a project into smaller pieces to make them more manageable. What lots of agile project managers and scrum masters end up is this backlog where you have like hundreds upon hundreds of user stories. And yes, ideally, your backlog should be always prioritized. So what it means is that the topmost item here is the most important one, and the bottom one are less important. That's true to the extent if your requirements can be like identified and clarified and specified inside each user story on the go as you need them. But in the real world, projects are more complex, and in most cases, you will have some user stories, some requirements that you can go and do right now, and there will be requirements that need some time. They're still top priority, but they need some time to analyze and understand how to implement them. And in this case, you will need to start thinking about uh, prioritizing them on a different level, because this plain list may not be sufficient. Again, you can imagine that you have 20 top priority items that we must do the next thing, but at the same time, all 20 of them they require more business analysis, or they are blocked by other team. So do you then like artificially like lower their priority? That's a bad approach, as for me. So instead, you can start thinking about the release cycles, like release trains, and you can use versions to plan out your releases. And it's as simple as this. You can actually see your whole backlog and you can start dragging them into the releases. And you can see that it marks them here as a tag with this release number. And once you do this, for example, for your top items, you can start filtering them up, and you can eliminate all unnecessary distractions and focus only on items in backlog that you think you can take for the next release, maybe 2 or 3 next sprints. And at the same time, if you need to work on the requirements, you can still go here and in backlog filter out everything by releases. So releases are a very powerful feature that a lot of project managers and Scrum Masters underutilize, because it gives you another level of organization. It gives you an ability to plan several sprints in future and prioritize the work on the requirements and the user stories during grooming sessions. Or if you work with a business analyst, that's even more important, because your business analyst will need to work on like different releases most of the times, and they need to understand which requirements from the second release are most important to do first. At the same time, these releases allow you to communicate the value you deliver to your customers, because if you go inside like this, there is a separate tab for releases. It's not visible by default, by the way. You may need to enable releases for your project to see it, but you can create a version here. It's very simple. For example, release number 2, you can set some dates to say that it will be, for example, next 3 or 5 sprints of work. You can give it a description, and by the way, I recommend that you use description here as as the main goal for this release, for this project. And again, I'm using these terms interchangeably because I believe that you can and should break down bigger product development into projects. And one release to the market, the whole cycle from adding new features and capabilities, testing all those features, doing some regression testing, and delivering that all to production environment, to the market, is just one release cycle. It's one project. So you can organize all of that into projects in this simple way and put specific goals here. And this goal, if you communicate it properly to this idea to your customers, your product owners, uh, you can use it as a project charter idea or concept that will say, okay, if a user story or defect doesn't support the project goal here, then we shouldn't take it for this release. Instead, let's plan out the next release with a different goal and start filling out that release with additional features. Okay, so there is a lot of things, by the way, connected to releases, because if you go inside, there is a report that you can generate, and you can see on the spot what user stories, what epics you delivered, what defects you finished, and so on. But on top of that, you can also integrate and build a whole continuous integration, continuous delivery system out of this functionality if you connect the proper tools to this action of releasing a product or releasing the release. But again, this even this simple or complex, I don't know. By the way, let me know if what I'm saying right now, what I'm showing, explaining right now is like common sense to you, or it's like advanced stuff that you never heard, and maybe I need to tone down a bit and start explaining in simpler terms. But again, if you think about it, what we did is that we created another field inside our ticket. And if you go just here, you should probably see it somewhere. Yeah. So this is called fixed version. And we just filled in another like custom field, if you want, additional field with the name of the release. Again, the idea is simple. This is just a spreadsheet with full of values that you can fill out and then use them to customize or represent your issues or your tickets in different ways. Again, see what I'm doing here. I can click on this release as a link and I'll get into the release representation here. All right. So this is one thing. That's how you organize on a very high level. This is your top level. If you work in Agile environment and you work with one piece of software that you develop, one product, then that's all you need. That's the top hierarchical organization for you. Releases, sprints, and then user stories and epics. And it's time to talk about epics. So in theory of Agile, of Scrum framework, we have user stories only. And additionally, like people, practitioners created the idea of an epic. And an epic is just a bigger user story that needs to be decomposed into smaller pieces, into user stories. So you can think about epic as a bigger piece of work that you didn't decompose yet. Why do we need epics? Well, epics can represent a functionality or a business need for the product. And this is just another way to organize user stories in your release, your pieces of requirements inside your Jira into different releases. And you can have multiple level of organizations now. So you can say, okay, I have certain business needs, or I have certain features in my product that I want to develop. And I want to have a view or representations of somehow of all connected pieces of requirements and tasks and maybe risks or anything else related, all the work related to this epic, to this business need. And you have it. It's called epics. You create it as a separate issue type. We call it epic. It has almost the same fields. You can fill them out with one additional pleasant thing, that you will get the child issues. And this is the additional field, connection or relationship to other items. Uh, Basically, Epic is your container for other issues, for other user stories. It allows you to sum up a lot of things. It allows you to track progress from those child issues, and so on and so on. So again, this is just another level of organization, and you can think about it as maybe even as a deliverable from the plan-driven or classical project management. So if you combine these two concepts together, what you get is that from one side, you can start organizing all your work by deliverables or business needs in terms of epics, then break it down into user stories. And then you can plan all this work into releases. And after you assign a certain amount of sprints into each release, you will have a roadmap or release plan right inside Jira that will show you what you are going to deliver and when, based on the due dates of your sprints. I understand that there might be some inconsistencies, some delays, some problems with issues, but in general, it's all that you need if you are working in a hybrid environment. And if you do all this correctly, then you can go into timelines, and then you'll see your sprints and releases marked here. Maybe we can do it right now if you want. So basically, if we say this release will be 2 weeks, and we'll start it on today. Okay, that will be one sprint. Again, notice how simple it is to create anything. Like the information required to fill out or start any entity inside Jira is very simple. You just need like click a button, sprint appears, then you can drag and drop stuff in there. And if you do it correctly, then on the timeline you will have your sprints. You will see your sprints. You will have the release date of your release. And now it's very easy to start planning out bigger pieces of work here by saying, okay, this will be on sprint 1. Maybe you'll have some other, by the way, you can create user stories right here as well. New user story. Okay, and for example, this user story will go into the next sprint. Notice that I'm not making it like day by day type of planning, and I'm not sure if you can actually do it, but I'm thinking in terms of whole sprints, because we deliver a user story at the end of the sprint. We don't do the intermediate deliverables during the sprint, only at the end of the sprint. All right, so if you apply the same concepts like from plan-driven project management, you can automatically get all the same artifacts or benefits of planning out releases, your projects, right in one tool. And you don't need anything extra. All of that, what you want to do here, should be as simple as this. Because we're talking about, again, agile software development, IT projects. We are not usually interested in finishing tasks on a certain date and time. We're thinking about 2 weeks increments. We're talking about sprints and releases. All right. So guys, I will pause here. And again, because this is, as usual, this is a Q&A session included. So far, if you have any questions, you can ask them about Jira, about the project management concepts that I talked about breaking down, and maybe about tailoring, because what I have showed you is a kind of a creative way, but it's like it's built in, but it's still a creative way to implement best practices of traditional project management or plan-driven project management inside an agile tool such as Jira, which is tailored to be used with Scrum and Kanban. Right? All right, guys. Any questions? You can ask them. So far, I will just quickly jump into saying that you most probably, if you're still here on the live stream or if you just joined, you want to get my professional development plan, because it's exactly about how to start thinking in terms of project tailoring, how to creatively combine tools with the processes and artifacts and documents that you see from the theoretical project management. So, for example, if you got your PMP, you know a lot of theory, but the challenge here is that you don't know how to implement all that theory inside such a tool as Jira. And this professional development plan would be a gold mine for you, because it talks a lot about how to do this tailoring. And next, we'll talk about a few interesting concepts. For example, how you can implement project charter inside Jira and still use all the benefits of setting boundaries around your project, how to still do change management or control of changes inside a Scrum framework, even though it's not like in the spirit of Scrum. And we'll talk about requirements traceability matrix, because you can actually implement RTM as a built-in system inside your Jira setup. You don't need anything extra here. And later we'll go a bit deeper, and I'll explain a few things that you might not have access to, but you need to know about these capabilities of Jira so that you can ask your company's Jira administrators to implement it for you, all these great features. All right. Guys, if you have questions, feel free to ask. So far, I can see that lots of my students are here. Kwesi, welcome from California. Glad to see you here. I see Jessica, also from our Career Accelerator program from Rwanda. Nice. Who else do we have? Dennis from Canada. Semper from Slovakia. Wow, nice. Rohit from India. Glad to have you here, guys. If you have any questions, post them. I will answer them at the next break, where after I finish another interesting idea. And let me quickly switch to, let's go to my slides. Because I want to show you now the idea of, basically we'll be talking about project charter and requirements traceability metrics. That's most probably these two tools, like from traditional project management, two tools that project managers search for the most. Sorry, I'm not sharing my slides. So yeah, here they are. So project charter and requirements traceability metrics are the most searched for tools, because project managers believe that these tools will help them to avoid scope creep, avoid changes from customers who always want to change things for free without understanding the impact of changes, and so on and so on. And the biggest mistake that I see that people make is that when they get or learn about these tools from PMP certification, from books, from any other places, they go and create them as separate documents. So your business, your project charter is a separate doc file which you send through your emails and you never know which is the final version, or your requirements traceability matrix, which requires you to copy and paste all the information that you need from Jira into a separate spreadsheet. I saw even some fancy automations where people try to connect those two spreadsheets and so on. But again, that's not efficient. That's the sure way to like spend tons of efforts on just maintaining those tools, while you can do the same inside Jira, right? Uh, Let me see. Yeah, so just for those who, guys, if you don't know what a requirements traceability matrix and how it looks, so again, in theory, it's a spreadsheet, it's a matrix, and you have all your requirements listed here as descriptions. And this document, this tool, allows you to connect your requirements to all possible aspects of your project. Things like project objective, project goals, your deliverables, and sometimes test cases and quality assurance efforts. So let's think about how we can use the same principles from project charter, because again, project goal and project objective comes from project charter. Deliverables come from work breakdown structure, but as we discussed, we have always one deliverable per iteration. So we can also have specifications as links and test cases. So how can we implement all of that inside Jira without creating a separate document, a separate tool that you need to maintain? So let's get back to Jira once again. And we will go here. So as for the project charter, unfortunately, that's a text document. You cannot avoid it, at least at the starting point. But instead of creating it like as a separate document and sending it in emails, there are better ways. And just think about different options or creative opportunities to implement this one and the same tool in different ways. So yes, you can actually write the project charter, print it, sign it, ask your customers to sign it. Most inefficient way in our digital age. Second option, as I said, you can create a doc file in Word, fill it out, and start sending it in emails. Bad because you need to maintain changes, you need to understand which version is the last one, and so on and so on. Very inaccurate way. You can create a shared document in Google Docs and collaborate there, but then you need to somehow connect it so that it's visible all the time. After that, you can write it right in email. Again, bad way to do it. Or the last one, which I like the most, is to still create a document, but you create it inside the tool so that it's right here. And as you might know, you can connect your Jira with Confluence, which is a wiki pages or like document management tool inside Atlassian suite. And here you can store all your required documentation. And again, if you follow the logic of releases, you can create child pages here for each release, like this release number 1, publish. You can describe something here. I'm just showing you the way to organize this. And then under release number 1, you can create what? A project chart. And you can use this document as a collaboration tool and write it out together with your customers. You can use any possible templates, and again, a bit of tailoring is required here. You don't need all the possible fields or sections of a typical project charter, but you can limit to just goals, deadlines, or business need. And maybe if you don't manage everything inside Jira, you can say high level requirements. And if you think one step further, I would say, okay, if you would talk about goals, you want to like make them easy to reuse in the future. For example, you would say something, you want to get a short name for each goal, something like I don't know, checkout page. Then you can explain that this goal is actually what it has as a goal. We need uh, checkout page, blah blah blah. But you will use this short name inside your Jira to mark tickets as a sign to that goal. So this is your way to capture not only project documentation, you can also have here bigger pieces of requirements that you might have. Things like, I don't know, specification for databases. If you work with any big data sets, it's very beneficial to capture it and keep it maybe pre-release, maybe as a high-level document here to supplement any user story that requires uh, access to that documentation. You can actually mention this document in any of your tickets. You can use the same section to describe workflows or how you work with statuses. You can have your contact details here. Anything that you think from traditional project manager, which is a written content, any text can go here right inside your tool so that you can easily access it within it, and you can reference it without leaving Jira as a tool. And again, you can collaborate on it. Guys, if anything you can take from this, even if you just need to create this thing and write it out, you shouldn't do it yourself as much as possible. You want to delegate all that to other team members. If you have business analysts, they should write this half of the project charter for this release. You may capture these items from your side. But basically, delegate creation of all these documents as much as possible. So what's next? This is like the top straightforward method. We talked about requirements traceability metrics, and sometimes it's very useful, especially if you work in big enterprise project where requirements come from different departments, different sources. You want to capture all this information: who requested, uh, what's the business goal, does it support our business goal, and so on and so on. And you can do it again inside Jira because, as I said, and I repeat it once again, Jira on the backend is just a spreadsheet with all this information. And you can add any field that you can think of as a property of each ticket. And you might have seen already that I had added some of these fields already inside our tickets. Things like who requested it and which department. This is basically the elements of requirements traceability metrics right here, right now. So I'm creating the spreadsheet not outside of Jira, but right here. I'm just adding these details into each ticket. You probably don't want to do it on a task level, and even maybe not on the user story level. It all depends on the number of tickets you have. But basically, you want to organize your project in such a way that is manageable. So I think that if you are, again, if you follow the whole set of advices and you have if you have releases, so you're operating with just 2, 3, 5 sprints at a time. And if you have epics, then you can always go to the high level and manage them on epic level rather than on user story level. So it all depends on the number of epics. And my rule of thumb is like, all right, during a sprint, it's totally okay to manage about 20 user stories, I would say. During a release, you can imagine it's like 100 user stories. If you have a business analyst and mature team. In this case, you can still do it as a plain list without any additional hierarchical complications, but you still want to keep it manageable. And if it goes beyond those numbers, beyond, like if you manage beyond 100 entities per release, there's something wrong. You need to either go one hierarchy higher, and as a project manager, you want to organize the work in such a way that you control requirements in terms of analysis of requirements and in terms of how the work is implemented on this level, on a high level. You shouldn't go as low as the tasks. All right. So what I'm leading to is that you want to create a requirements traceability matrix right here, and you can add those fields to your Jira instance, such as who requested, what department requested. Maybe there is something like an importance or impact field that shows that it's a very high, very important piece of requirement or feature that you need to implement. Maybe if it comes from tech support department, it means that it's an issue that has a higher severity or problem that you need to address because it comes from real users. If it comes from sales, maybe it's not that important. So you can make a lot of triaging and decision making just based on these fields. Now, the problem is that, let me just finish my thought about creating requirements traceability metrics, is that you can, like in this view, you can start filtering out all possible things like, okay, I want to work with just release 2 items. And I want to prioritize the work from specific people or specific departments only. So, for example, I'll add department here. And this is my requirements traceability matrix filtered out as a spreadsheet. That's all. You have all the tools here to do all the same decisions that you would do from a separate document, such as requirements traceability matrix, like as a spreadsheet. Okay. Now, the problem that I'm leading to is that one thing that you must understand about Jira is that it has 2 types of projects. And you can see here, this is the type, and you know what project you work in, and there are team managed projects and company managed projects. And the idea is that if you are working in a bigger company, it becomes more organized. They will start using company managed projects, which means that they follow all these projects follow the established approach, and you cannot customize it yourself. So every project is templated, and if we change something on one project, usually it means it will change all the projects. So from one side, it complicates a lot of setup for administrators of Jira. From the other side, it allows you to control how people use Jira, and this is the way to standardize project management approaches. The other type is team managed project, and this is a type of project where you can do a lot of customizations just for your project. You can do it yourself, and it will impact only your specific project, nothing else. You can create custom fields with this simplified UI. You can just, say, I need a new drop down, and you will put it here, and we'll say, okay, this is like department that we saw previously. I misspelled this. No, uh, who requested it? And then you can do it like, okay, sales, uh, marketing, and so on. So the idea is that you have all the control of your project, and you can customize it. From one side, this gives you a lot of opportunities to play around. On the other hand, it's most probably won't be the case for you, because big organizations go uh, into the company managed projects. If you get into a company managed project, it means that there is a person or even a department that manages all the setup for Jira. And just to give you just a glimpse on what's behind the scenes in Jira setup, there are like you can create new issue types. So, for example, you have your epics and user stories, tasks and subtasks. You can create features. You can create risk as an issue type so that you can create risks inside your Jira right away. Uh, then you can combine them into issue types. You can create schemes. This is like another level of complication. I will not go into this, but it allows you to customize projects uh, and how each and every piece of issue of a ticket looks like. Then important part is a workflow, and I would talk about workflow in just a few minutes. Again, you can create different workflows for different projects. You can put them into schemes. Uh, that's another thing. Screens is also an interesting thing. Basically, you can create a screen and use this screen in schemes, again, in group of screens. And then you can assign a specific screen to the issue that you work with, which basically means that you can create a certain set of fields that you need to fill out when you just create an issue. But you will see a different set or extended set of fields when you just edit or view this issue after that. This allows you to, like, during creation process, quickly create an issue and allow to create them rapidly in bulk, and then you allow to fill out all the fields after that. Now, custom fields. This is where you can customize any ticket to any level that you want. You can add many different uh, types of fields into Jira ticket, and there are again a lot of customization where this will show and when. But again, labels, numbers, dates, checkboxes if you need those. You can imagine that you can have checkboxes to say whether people saw this issue, and each person needs to put a checkbox as a confirmation. Radio buttons, lists, multiple choices, everything. Like you can customize, Jira to any possible project management framework that you want. All right. And you can see a lot of things that can go here based on your needs. Again, you might not have access to directly change all of these. And if you work in a big organization, it might require a lot of skills to organize this properly. So you need to know that this capability is present, and you can try to ask responsible people to make the adjustments required for your project or for your department based on the knowledge that you gain from, again, good project management, solid project management skills. All right. So, as I said, you can, if you think about other implementations beyond requirements traceability metrics, you can also create a customization for Jira where you have a child item to user stories or epics, such as risks. And now risk management becomes integrated into Jira. Another cool concept that usually lives outside of the work. And by the way, if you're like practicing project manager, you can like comment in the chat and say like, is your project management actually integrated into your work, or is it sitting outside of it and it's an additional work, or you just discuss this on the meetings and people need to do it somewhere like later? If yes, then here's a solution. You include risks as Jira tickets, and you implement and estimate risk response plans as tasks. And they become a valid, transparent work that goes into each and every sprint. Okay, good. So this is covered. Now I want to pause here and see if you have any questions. I will again remind for newcomers who just joined that I would strongly recommend that you get my professional development plan, because what I'm explaining right now, and I'm trying to make this hit home, that you must not only know project management or assume that a project management tool will do the heavy lifting. It's your responsibility to implement a project management approach, including tools and processes inside that tool. It has all the capabilities. As you can see, these capabilities are present in this tool. And I can say for sure, because I used a lot of popular tools, they all have these capabilities. But because you don't know them, that means that you're just you're assuming that it's set up the way it should be, and it will replace your knowledge of project management. And it will, and by the way, let's be honest, guys, I'll give some hard love to you. There are a lot of project managers that blame their project management tool that it's not efficient or doesn't work as expected, or they blame the environment in general because processes are again inefficient, or it's hard to follow them and you need to copy paste a lot of information. That's exactly why, because someone someday decided that they will use this tool, but they never thought about how to use the project management principles and approaches inside those tools. So they just assume that tracking tasks is enough, that tracking work is enough, that you don't need to organize and build these different complications to organize the work into releases, into epics, into deliverables, planning out the releases, and so on. So if that's your case, I would strongly recommend that you scan this barcode or go to the link that you see and get the plan, because inside you will find a lot of supporting resources, including templates that will help you to look at all this typical stuff and classical project management theory from different perspectives. Just like we do it here, we try to incorporate things like project charter, requirements traceability metrics, and even risk register with risk responses right inside Jira. Okay. All right, I see one question. Let me just quickly answer it. Is this video getting recorded, and would it be available to see recording to it? I didn't start from the beginning and would be... Okay, Julia. By the way, Julia, hello. Glad to see you here. Yes, Julia, it will be available as a recording once we finish it on my YouTube channel. Okay, so we have Gulab here, John, Daisy from Kenya. Glad to see you guys. All right, let me see what I had else in mind. All right, yeah, I've talked about risk management, and maybe I'll just finish my thoughts about it before we move on. And the idea of risk management, and you probably know this framework. This is a typical framework where you identify a risk, you put them into risk register, you do either qualitative or both qualitative and quantitative analysis. Then you somehow prioritize your risk and like select certain part of them to develop risk responses and proactively manage those risks. And you see this big line that goes and says project management plan update. So what does it mean? It means exactly that your risk management efforts should end up in your Jira instance as tasks, as additional time buffers. Again, think about time reserves as an empty task that says, okay, if this risk happens, then we'll need these 2 days of work during our sprint to tackle it. Otherwise, we may think about taking some defects or some extra work for those 2 days if the risk doesn't happen. All right, that's how it works. Let me see if anything, yeah, that will be all. So now let's get back to Jira and we'll try to examine what we can implement from typical project management ideas inside Jira. So risks, not a common thing, but let me quickly show you how you can implement it. I would say you need one more issue type, and you can create it as risk, and it's a risk. I don't know, you can use these descriptions as you want it. There are types of issues. It's like type 1. It means that it will be on the same level of hierarchy as user stories, or it will be as a subtask level, so it will only appear under user stories and maybe tasks. I want to keep them as a standalone item. It's already exists because I already created it. All right, so here it is. I won't create another one, but basically that's the whole process. The idea is that the complication here is that you need to assign it to certain scheme, so it appears in the required places. So let's see if we can create one. I think it should be here, and this is how you create any new ticket in any new project. So we notice that we like discussed the existing issues. And now you're looking at this screen with all these options when you create a new issue. So what do we see here? First of all, you can create a ticket inside any project that you have access to from any place. And you can create any type of issue here. So we talked about tasks, user stories, epics. There are defects by default again, but we have just created an issue type which is called risks. Risk. So they follow the same idea: in progress, testing done, and to do. We can use summary, description, components. Components, by the way, another built-in field that you can use to explain which part of your product or service is impacted by this risk or by this feature. During some break, I don't know. So this is one target date when you want to start this issue and so on. There is like another section that we didn't discuss, but again, it's in the realm of same idea that you can have different fields in your spreadsheet. And you can also have a field that says to which issues and why this issue is connected to this risk. So for example, this risk relates to, and we can select a user story that it relates to. We can have multiple user stories here or multiple epics inside a user story. This allows us to give this direct connection and explanation of what's the impact of a risk. Again, fixed version, where it happens, we can specify it's release 2, who is assigned, let's say it's me, priority, high. We can add labels. By the way, labels. Labels are available to any users in Jira. So anything that we discussed so far can be implemented as labels. You can think about that. You can create releases and mark them the same way. So you can say that label will be release number 1, and this will be okay. It can't have this character, but release 1 I think is acceptable. Yeah. So again, the same idea. This will not give us this fancy view of releases where you have all the summary of a release with all the epics, but you can use this field to group and search for all the issues. Next, what's the parent? I would say that you don't need to have this parent for a risk. Which sprint it's impacted? Where do we want to keep the I would say, where do we want to keep the risk responses? For example, into an active sprint, and all the other fields: impact, high, probability, medium, requested by, Dmitry. So what you see, by the way, you see how many fields are here, and this is a typical case when you just like mindlessly create new fields and you mindlessly use those fields in all projects, in all issue types, uh, in all views, such as create, edit, view. Here's the idea: you can and should customize all these fields based on the issue type, based on whether it's a user story, task, or a risk in our case, so that it includes only the fields required for this issue type. And again, that's the complexity that only Jira administrators need to face. But if you work in a company that has something like this, where you can scroll and scroll for 5 pages long of fields which you don't use, that's a good sign. And if you can master Jira at a bit higher level, that's a great micro project or small achievement that will allow you to do this extra work, generate this additional value, customize Jira, and make it usable again for every other team and every other person in the company. It will take some learning and understanding, but I believe that any company that uses Jira can benefit from this improvement. So take a note if you want to get extra credits for your next performance review. That will be a great improvement project. All right. Now comes an interesting concept. Okay, it's changed. Let me see. Okay, it's here. So we talked about that each of these fields are actually has name, and you can search for each and every of these fields, which means you can always group and filter your tickets by these fields. So on the one side, you have this basic way to search. You have all these fields. For example, from this project, I want to see only tasks. Let's say maybe this project. Also, tasks. They don't have tasks. Let's story. All the stories with certain statuses assigned to a certain person. So you can create all these filters by using these drop downs. That's one way. But if you want to use Jira as an expert, you need to know something that is called Jira query language. And basically, this is what it is. It's a query language which allows you to find the issues. It's something resembles as, I don't know, SQL query, but much more simplistic in its format. So all fields have names. If you know those names, you can search for them. And if you know just a few functions and commands that you can use inside this Jira query language, you have a powerful tool to find anything and everything that you want. Now, a lot of functionality inside Jira actually relies more on this Jira query language. And sometimes you will need to know a lot of backend stuff if you want to implement more serious things in Jira. So it's like the takeaway is simple. It's very beneficial to learn the syntax. It's quite simple. Once you understand it, you can easily create these queries yourself. At the beginner's level, you don't need it. You can use the basic language, but when you need to create some reports, maybe some dashboards, using query language is much easier. But as I see, like from where Jira goes, Atlassian basically makes it easier for and user friendly for you with these new views where you can see all your issues in a table view, and you can edit everything here. So maybe in a year or two, Jira query language will not be necessary for anyone to know, but as of today, there are still beneficial applications that we'll also discuss this when we go and look at the automations. So that's another thing that you need to know. Jira query language. Why? Because it's an in-depth way to search for required issues, group them, and filter them somewhere on the backend. If you use just the front end, if you're just a user of Jira, you may not need it. All right? All right. What's next, guys? What's next that you need to know? I mentioned one important thing, which is workflows. And to illustrate you a workflow, I will go into a different project. All right, where it is, for example, this one. And let me see. Yeah, we can manage workflows. And workflows in Jira look like these diagrams with the connected or disconnected uh, fields. And workflow is basically the representation of statuses in Jira. So let me just go back and show you statuses. So every issue have this status field, and it goes like, and it follows the software development workflow or life cycle, and you can customize it. Basically, what you see here, there are status for business analysis, then it says it's ready for development, then it's in development, then it's in QA, then it might be peer review, some exit status that we won't do this issue, and so on. And the idea is that, again, if you know Scrum and Kanban, the idea is that your board represents your workflow. And when you say, okay, it's in business analysis, if it's done, you move it here, and then it's ready for development. Once someone is free to take this ticket, they will move it into development. Once this ticket is finished, they will take it and say, okay, it needs peer review, so someone will check the code that you wrote, not you, but your developers. And then once it's finished in peer review, it will go into quality assurance stage. QAs will do their work, and after that, it might be done as finished. That's the workflow. And the big idea here is that you can customize the workflow inside Jira to represent your real workflow inside the organization. So if you use Kanban, it's super critical that you have a real world representation of your workflow, because you want to see at which phase or stage of a project you have the bottlenecks, problems that you need to solve, and how tickets move. If you use Scrum, you can limit it to just to do in progress and done, so very simple workflow. Or you can go and describe the actual stages, like in development, peer review, in QA, ready for deployment, deploy to production, or deploy to staging. But whatever the workflow is, you need to tie your workflow to the actual workflow in the organization, in the team. And there are way too many considerations to explain it just on this live stream, because it includes what environments you have and how they are tied, what are the definitions of done for tasks and user stories, what is the quality assurance process, whether you have automated tools or not. So lots and lots of considerations here, but basically the idea is simple, that you need to have a clear view based on your board, what's the status of your each of your tickets. And if we're talking about Scrum, again, it's more important here to see how the items go, because you need to finish a sprint like successfully. You need to finish all the assigned tickets to those sprints during the sprint. All right. So that's another thing. Again, if you work in an organization which uses these company managed projects, you will not be able to customize your workflow. In this case, you should go and get documentation about what these statuses mean. And the big mistake, again, that I see lots of project managers make is that once they get into a company and they see that there is a workflow in a tool, they assume that they should somehow uh, adapt to the workflow. And they never question why this workflow exists and who created it. As it often the case, people who are not project managers create these workflows based on the development process, on the software development process. And in most cases, it's not very convenient. It doesn't represent all the things that you need to manage a project. And something that basically we discussed in Career Accelerator recently is that ideally, your status, you need two statuses: one which shows the workflow stage, and the second one that specifies what's happening with a ticket or piece of requirement inside that stage. Things like if it's in progress, what does it mean? Or it's in development, it means that it's actually in development, it's in peer review, it's like uh, development finished and prepared for deployment to QA and stuff like that. You may specify additionally the status of a requirement. But again, it all ties down to the actual workflow or the lifecycle of code inside the organization. And that's why I recommend that you go to a person who implemented this workflow and you ask what they meant and how all other teams work inside this Jira using these workflows. All right. Good. I think I should show you one more thing before we move on. And it's called automations. In Jira, like if you use it for many projects, for many teams, you will notice that you click a lot of things, you manually set up a lot of fields once you create the ticket, but a lot of them are actually not that unique. They're just like information based, or I would say they don't require a human being to make a decision. They are more like you just need to fill them out. And that's where automations can come handy. And basically, you can automate the heck out of Jira. Again, at Career Accelerator, we practiced it and we created, for example, an automation which says whenever we create an issue, as you can see, like very user friendly interface, issue created, issue updated, and it's a defect, a bug. So someone creates an issue and it's a bug, and the priority is highest. Then we send an email to a project manager so that there is a critical defect logged and it needs immediate attention to prioritize and tackle it as quickly as possible. And then we also set a field. We have a due date field, and based on this formula, we decided, okay, due date should be 12 hours from now. So a team member who, like our project manager, needs to resolve this defect in 12 hours. So you can imagine that you can do this all the same yourself, but somehow a project manager needs to monitor daily all the issues that are created and have a routine to check for defects. Uh, then maybe create a filter to filter out only high severity issues. And then based on the when he sees this defect, he will go and update the edit and update the due date uh, manually, set the date, assign the person to fix the defect, and so on. But again, it's inefficient. You can do a lot of this automatically, and based on this email, there is again a field issue key. It will be a link. It can be a link, I should say, where I get an email, I click the link, I get into Jira automatically, so I don't spend any time to manage this situation, right? So this is a type of automation, simple automation, I would say. There are much more complex automations that we tested out. For example, you can also automate things like fields of child issues. For example, you can imagine Epic and 10 user stories. And due date on the Epic level changes, but you need to see it on user stories as well. So what you are going to do, you will go to each separate user story and update the due date for each issue. So you need to do it 10 times. Definitely uh, very unproductive, especially if you are doing some high-level planning with your management and they drag and drop these issues on a timeline, and then you need to go and update hundreds of connected user stories with all these due dates. So again, to avoid this, you can use automation, which will check if the due date has changed. It will check if it's changed on Epic level, and then it will go find all the child items which are user stories, so it will not touch tasks or risks, and will update their due dates. And this automation works 24/7 without your intervention. Again, the creativity here is endless. And this is something that you need to think very hard about whenever you notice that you manually click a lot of buttons just to capture the required information. From my experience, I also had a project where I automated uh, the collection of data required to do the analysis of performance. So, for example, there were several automations that set the start date when someone uh, sets the status to in progress. I capture the date and time of that event, and when someone sets the status to done, I also capture it as an end date. And in the long run, I can export this data through additional plugins, but I have real data, real duration for each and every task in that project. And I had to do this in this example specifically because the team was not educated and didn't have the culture of capturing the effort spent. So I had to automate it for them so that they are not distracted. I don't need to overcome lots of resistance and stuff like that. And this is automation. Again, a powerful tool, may not be available to you if you are just a normal user. You may ask for these automations uh, from your administrator of Jira, right? And again, all automations and when they happen, how they happen, can also be viewed inside every ticket. If something like was automated here, it would capture it in this field. All right, so this I think is a basic overview of Jira, some like entry-level Jira tutorial, just to give you the overview. I will quickly summarize what we learned today for you. So first of all, Jira is nothing else than at the back end as a spreadsheet which has this value as a key and all the related other fields that relates to this key. And recently Jira created it even in this view. You can view Jira tickets as a spreadsheet because I can say that lots and lots of stakeholders in my career, they all wanted to get an extract of all issues in a spreadsheet. Now they have it. Maybe you can even export it somehow, but I don't know why would you need this. So this is one thing. Everything is just a spreadsheet with all these fields. You can add and edit those fields. You can represent those fields and show those fields in different views. It's all customizable, maybe not by you, but by many other, by your Jira administrators. After that, everything that you see here, every single button is just another way to represent this information, this spreadsheet data in different ways as a Gantt chart view, as a backlog, some line items you can drag and drop for convenience. You can drag and drop this between backlogs and sprints. This is your board, same idea. You just convenience of dragging and visualizing the progress of a certain set of issues. Calendar, something new. I haven't seen this before, but the idea is the same. You can simply drag and drop things here to visualize when the work should be done. List view, your reports, again, all this data comes from your issues. As you can imagine, you can customize this to see what information will be built based, or what representation of this information will be built based on those fields. Goals, again, something new is not implemented yet. By the way, good example, this is like a new feature that I haven't seen yet as well. Issues, another list view representation. Code, maybe a different functionality. It connects with your version control system. Okay, again, releases, just a additional field that you can assign to your tickets, and you will have another view with additional documentation, designs. Again, this is just a way for you to help you organize the work, because you can add stuff here as documents, as test cases, and so on. And your Confluence part, you can and should keep all the documentation in one tool. Don't generate a lot of Word files and spreadsheets. Use what you have, because you can connect everything together. And you can use like these shortcuts to go to external resources. All right. Now, when you know this, when you understand that Jira is nothing else than a spreadsheet with lots of columns, you can start thinking about adding the required columns to capture and integrate project management concepts. Things like requirements traceability metrics, risk management ideas, other integration points. So anything that you saw here on the slides. So these columns can go there. Business need or project chart fields like project goals, project objectives, KPIs, everything can be included there. Solution requirements additionally can be added not just as descriptions and user stories. You can use Confluence to integrate that documentation. You can collect high-level requirements again as not just as bunch of emails. Instead, you can create either a Confluence page and collect high-level requirements there, or you can create a higher level issue type, such as a usual concept, you will have user stories, epics, and features. And feature is like the top level business need, very big in scale, spans across maybe even releases, and so on. So you can start collecting those requirements again inside Jira on a very high level using this conversational tone. Again, the opportunities are limitless here. For example, you can talk on a meeting with customers and they will explain the feature on a high level, a business need. You can use AI tool to capture or summarize that conversation, put it inside a feature, then assign it to a business analyst, and they will go and break it down into epics that make sense to the software development process. Again, all of that inside one tool. Project scope statement, another tool that you can use, like it's a document again, but you can imagine that inside Jira, inside Confluence, you can connect epics and features and state that, okay, during this project, during this release, we'll be implementing this set of features and epics. That will be your scope statement. And everything is linked together. Work breakdown structure is not that obvious. I would say if you use Jira and you want to use work breakdown structure concepts, you should, because it becomes very important on a very large products. When your product is huge with lots of functionality, when this functionality is also huge, and just adjusting something in that product, you should probably organize your requirements using the work breakdown structure ideas, where like you have your product, you have your deliverables as main pieces or modules of your product, then you will have big pieces of requirements and so on and so on. So it's like you will just substitute deliverables and work packages with some kind of epics and features to organize all the work. You may also consider breaking down your requirements by phases of the product. And like I'm not talking about phases as like in inception, planning, and so on. As phases of the product is just again releases, where you may have some quarterly cycle, and it will be your again additional issue type under which you will store all the requirements for that cycle. It all boils down to this same idea that I was driving home to you guys, is that you must find ways to break your project into smaller pieces and make them more manageable. Because if you try to manage a project like on this high level from top down, it will be very difficult. You want to break it down and work one piece at a time. Whew, I think that was a lot of information. I hope you found it valuable. I have like 20 minutes more, and I will stay here to answer your questions. And if you are just joined and you haven't seen this barcode, it's a free professional development plan. It teaches you all the principles that I talked about today, and specifically the principle of tailoring. This is the most critical skill for any project manager to master. So scan the barcode. I'll check the comments. All right. So Gleb asks, what's your top 5 KPIs to look at? That's a good question. And it's a bit tricky. It comes with a caveat. You see, like there are organizational KPIs, and I like mostly look at KPIs as organizational KPIs. It means that we do project or any type of activity, anything that relates to my work. And this work, this project should somehow relate to a strategic KPI in the organization. So KPIs might be like, we assume that KPIs is a number. It's like a number that we can track, but KPIs can also be like a finished product, an introduced tool, or for example, you can have a KPI to standardize project management approach. Once you standardize your Jira to use company managed projects, that would be the KPI you must achieve. It's binary. Uh, so there might be like different kinds of KPIs: finished projects, finished implementations, uh, generated revenue if you have an impact on that, and so on and so on. So from this perspective, there are no standard KPIs such as that. If you are thinking about just project level, what KPIs should you look at the project? I don't think there are KPIs actually. These are all project management aspects or aspects of your project, and you have your baselines. So the only KPI you should be uh, thinking about all the time is the variance between what you planned and what you have right now, what the actual values that you have right now. For example, if you planned a budget of like $50,000 and you're progressing, and today you are at uh, $25,000 budget spent, but you plan to be at this point of time at 20,000. That means you have a variance of $5,000. That's your KPI, like that you should be looking at. And KPIs in project management, like these variables, they come from all aspects of project management. Number of tasks that you created after you finished planning. And again, it doesn't matter whether it's Scrum or plan-driven project. Number of defects that you found after the QA team gave a sign-off. Number of defects that customers reported from production environment. These KPIs are important in project environment, but again, it's if you think about it, I'm talking about project environment in IT industry, where we develop projects in series of projects because we develop products. I hope it makes sense, because like we're not limited just to one project and then jumping to another customer's projects. Usually it's a series of projects, and in this case there are a lot of KPIs related to the quality of the product that we develop. I hope like I explained this already. If you have any additional questions, maybe you have some like examples of KPIs that you heard of, so that you like think about top 5 of them. But basically, as I said, there are company KPIs and there are project management data that you need to monitor, and you are most interested in variances or trends in variances when you implement a project. What is the best way to share sprint report with stakeholders? Do you recommend specific apps for this purpose? That's a good question because it feels like a very artificial thing that I understand where it comes from, but it's something out of two worlds. You say like sprint report. Is it like what you finished during a sprint? Then you should show the board and show the like just the list of all items in that sprint, because in the idea of Scrum, you either finished the sprint successfully or you failed it. There is nothing in between. If you finish successfully, that means you did everything you planned. If you didn't finish something, then you failed a sprint. So I recommend that you use the most simplistic way you can, and it's all about showing customers what was planned versus what was already done. So a view which shows items that are done and or a list of items that are still not done will be ideal here. Other items like showing them burn down chart, it might be useful, but again, it depends on how often you show it to customers or stakeholders. Because your main stakeholder, again, in Scrum, you have just one main stakeholder, it's product owner. It means that this product owner looks at your Scrum board daily. They know what's going on there. They can access all those burnout charts. But if you talk about weekly progress review for a broader audience, then basically it doesn't matter what you do during a sprint. It's all about how you finish the sprint. So you want to do this report as at the sprint demo session, where you go through the list of user stories and just say they are all done, or we finished these user stories and couldn't finish these user stories. That's all. Simplify as much as possible. I hate creating reports for the sake of reports. And if we talk about Scrum and a need to show the progress, current progress of a sprint, like in the middle of a sprint to stakeholders, there's something wrong. And usually it's a lack of trust. They don't trust that you can finish the sprint successfully. That's why they want to control it in the middle. It's a different issue that you need to address. Okay, at my current job, we use Smartsheets tool. What are the main benefits of Jira compared to Smartsheets? Well, I think the main benefit is that Jira is like, it was here forever, and it has a lot of productivity and user experience features that you can only get once you have this huge user base and you understand what they need. And the Jira, like, it's mostly, I would say, tailored to software development IT projects, where Smartsheets, you can use them in any way possible. Jira has a lot of also customization capability, so you can customize heck out of Jira and use it or adapt it to any possible project that you have. While I don't think you can do this in Smartsheets. And Smartsheets, I don't remember, I checked them quite long ago. I feel that my perception is that project management in spreadsheets is a bad practice, because it I would say forces you to think in terms of Gantt charts and lists, where it's not always efficient. Like, Gantt chart is just one way to represent your schedule, but it's not the most efficient way, not most accurate one. So just by forcing you to have a list and a Gantt chart on the main view, forces you to focus more on scheduling activities rather than managing all aspects of project management, if it makes sense. I don't know specifically about other customizations and integrations that Smartsheets have today, but I assume it's more like Smartsheets are plan-driven projects first, while Jira is more agile projects first, like Scrum and Kanban projects. All right. Okay, guys, any other questions? I will check my Jira once again. Maybe I forgot something that I can share. But if not, if you don't have any questions, I feel like we can wrap up. And again, you will have the recording of this session. You can go back and watch again what I was showing and explaining. And maybe as the final note, one more time, guys, get the development plan, because it includes my templates, my best content that will explain a lot of concepts so that you don't need to search them on the internet. And most of all, this idea of creative tailoring of processes and tools that you learn from books and certifications in the real world, It's a skill, guys. You need to develop that skill, and there is not that many areas that you need to cover. But once you cover them, that's when you become a great project manager. That's when you can start managing with predictable outcomes without this stress, firefighting. It all comes from tailoring projects, tailoring tools and processes. Okay, thanks for your thoughts. So, mind refreshing because I read a mountain of article and videos as well, and they all describe the bulk of KPIs, but common ones are utilization rate, EVM, number of defects. Yeah, Gleb, that's correct. And one more thought that I want to add to KPIs or any other stuff. There are KPIs that you as a project manager need, and this is something that helps you to control the work. And it mostly depends on what project management approach you have. If it's Scrum, then it's quite easy. You just ensure that all the work is done in this increment, and then it all boils down to like burn down chart, user story points or hours remaining. That's all that you have to work with. If it's a plan driven project, it's more about maybe earned value management, but in practice not many companies actually use it. It's more about like comparing the numbers, planned versus the actual one, what you plan to be at this moment from all possible aspects and what you have actually right now. And it's more important to think not about the KPIs themselves, but about the data that you need to understand the progress or the status of your project. And usually it means that you need to collect the actual time and money spent per task. And you need to capture that somehow. Only then you can analyze those and make some decisions. But out of the blue, the KPIs don't appear, and customers don't have the standard list of KPIs that a project manager needs to show on any project. If possible, like if your customers don't ask, if your boss don't ask about any KPIs, don't overcomplicate your project management. You should use a simple approach as possible. If they don't ask it, don't use it. If you need it, use it for your own uh, needs. But basically, it won't be KPIs. It will be raw data that you can then represent in different ways. Because I want you to understand also that the raw data, the actual time spent on a level of a task is not that important. You want to look at it on a higher level, like either on a deliverable level or an epic level, because usually tasks take either some tasks will take more time, some tasks will take less time, but on average, when you have a mature team, like you will level approximately about your initial estimates. And that's why you want to collect the data to be able to see the trends, not just the snapshot of what's going on today with a specific task. Because if you start reacting to problems based on one task that was like done not on time, it will be a hell. You need to plan in such a way so that only trends will like a, a clear trend that you are delaying. Only after that, after you even delayed for a few weeks, maybe on a large project, you will only then just make a decision to adjust something. That's how you should think about planning. If your plan needs adjustment just because one task like went beyond its dedicated time or budget, it's wrong mindset to planning. Your plan should be flexible. It should be able like a water in the bottle. If you put water in the bottle and put it in the freezer, the bottle will blow. So that's why you need to have some buffers for water to play around. When it extends, your project should be able to accommodate this additional work without a need to adjust. Something will take more time, something will take less time, but overall the project should come up to about the estimate. Okay, I hope this makes sense. It takes a little bit of understanding of project management and how it works, and risk management as well. But the idea is that KPIs on the spot don't show you the real picture. Only trends show. All right, guys, thank you so much for staying with me and throughout this session and for all your questions. I will be glad to see you next time. I'll think about a great topic for you to cover. And enjoy the rest of your day.